Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today for this conversation with the ImpactCity. My name is Jessica Pothering. I'm an impact investing journalist with Impact Alpha. It's an impact investing news organization, and I'm going to be leading the conversation today, which deals with the topic of the recent Dutch parliamentary election and its role in shaping and supporting the impact building agenda. It's been happening here in the Netherlands. Really just exploring, what challenges exist, are likely to persist, and what solutions are needed. And, does the election present opportunities for a constructive shift of that narrative? It's my understanding, of course, that there's a bit of turbulence in the Dutch government at the moment. That makes this conversation even more pertinent, actually, in some ways, because I think it highlights the need to really identify ways to keep the impact economy moving forward, regardless of what's happening in the public domain. I'm joined today by Coos Santing of ImpactCity, the City of The Hague's Impact Investing Initiative, Michel Scholte, the Minister of the New Economy and himself a serial entrepreneur, and Laure, Wessemius-Chibrac of the Netherlands Advisory Board on Impact Investing. Just for a bit of housekeeping at the top of the call, we will have a short back and forth discussion for the next 30 to 40 minutes with all of the panelists, and then we'll open that up to Q&A. And so I just want to mention you have the chat feature available to you if you want to type questions in there as the conversation goes on. We'll return to those at the end of the Q&A, and I'll leave a few minutes actually, or a few seconds of space for anybody who wants to step up and ask their own question directly. Yes, okay, so kicking off, I know we're all very passionate about this, and since it's quite a busy agenda, we'll all have to be sure to channel that passion efficiently. Just as a starting point, I realize it's quite unconventional to have an American who is fairly new to the Netherlands moderating a discussion about the Dutch elections. But, from my experience, I've been an impact investing journalist for close to 10 years at this point, which is basically around the time that the term impact investing was officially coined. And my observation is that this type of conversation is becoming increasingly relevant to the impact ecosystems everywhere, actually. It used to be really that impact investing was a private sector business and private sector conversation, and it's increasingly making its way into the public domain and into public policy, which from where I sit is really promising. This is new. I think there is this growing awareness from the impact investing community that the public's embrace of impact and the impact economy is the fuel that's really needed to accelerate this agenda and unlock capital and resources and ultimately do what we are all here trying to do, which is shift systems for the good. So I would like to begin this conversation with Coos at ImpactCity from The Hague to help us sort of set the stage for this discussion. Coos, I always ask the question up top just for anybody who's listening who's kind of new. Please give us the 30-second elevator pitch or just backgrounder on what ImpactCity is and does and what your role is.
Yes, so ImpactCity started really 6 years ago. In the time that impact was not so familiar, for impact economy was not so familiar, but we started it because The Hague is, of course, the city of peace and justice, but we were lacking the entrepreneurship part. So that's why we tried to build the ImpactCity ecosystem, where we really accelerate, the new economy, and we always look for entrepreneurs that are doing good and doing business. So make that combination. And it can be entrepreneurs in the energy field. It can be humanitarian innovation, water, food. And of course, we try to help them in all the ways possible. But in the end of the day, it are the entrepreneurs, of course, that do it by themselves. And it's really an international brand. So we really are always open. We have, for example, an international impact competition. We have Impact Fest, really. We try to have an international community. And impact investing is really important because these kind of companies need, of course, enough capital to grow and to have that impact.
Not to sound biased, but I mean, I've been following ImpactCity for years now. Actually, you are one of the reasons I was lured to the Netherlands to begin with a couple of years ago, because it strikes me that, you know, especially at the time, was really unique for even a local government to take this approach to impact, really to wholeheartedly embrace the value of the impact economy and the shift in trying to move entire global and local systems to this agenda. And so you're a representative of the municipal government, you know, but at the same time, you're watching all of these changes happening at the national level and having to think through how this is going to affect ImpactCity's own goals and the local impact economy. So tell me, you know, just give me the highlights of where your thinking is right now after the elections, keeping in mind, of course, that things are quite in flux. So yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the current situation, but it will not change like the positions of the parties. But it is an important, like, impact economy or impact investing. It was, we had in the last social entrepreneurship, that was in the last cabinet. It was for the first time it was mentioned in the coalition agreement, but impact is really new, and it is time if we want to scale this up. And also the ecosystem, of course, we have done, we were front runners when we started, and it was not me because I'm only 2 years here in this position, but the people before me and the people who are still there, they started it 6 years ago. Then it was totally new in the Netherlands. Of course, there were always people busy with this topic, but as a movement, it was new. And it is now important also, if you look at, for example, in investing, it is important that for these entrepreneurs, the instruments of the national government, which you talk about, billions, if you see procurement or grants, but also the venture capital scheme. I was working before for the national government, that this becomes more available for impact investing. And it is also the right time, because we have such, the whole world, of course, we have such big challenges ahead of us, that I think impact entrepreneurship in particular has a lot of solutions for, is a key for those big challenges we have. And for example, the sustainable development goals are really helpful to see which challenges we have ahead of us in the Netherlands, but also worldwide. So it is important that the national government now steps in. And I've seen this the same 5 years ago when I came back from the US to the Netherlands with the startup policies, which was also there were no startup policies in the Netherlands. And it has an effect. Of course, I have to say that I think ecosystem building, in the center of the ecosystem are always the entrepreneurs. So the government can only facilitate this, and can, of course, facilitate the entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. So the key are still the entrepreneurs. It's not the government. The entrepreneurs really make the difference in the ecosystem.
I mean, so you all obviously have a lot of firsthand experience in helping to build an economy, you know, that's set up around entrepreneurs and startups and scale-ups. I mean, this is what you all have been doing for the last 6 years, right? And so you must have pretty clear ideas at this point about what gaps you as a municipal level economy and the impact investing, you know, private sector players that you have been able to bring in are helping to fill, but then which other ones are really where additional support is needed at both the national and the EU level. And can you give us some highlights of you know, some of those persistent challenges and how, what specific types of support you would like to see from the national government in particular?
Yeah. So for the governments, they can play a big role as a customer for those impact companies. And we have started 5 years ago the Startup in Residence program, where we pose our own challenges and ask startups to solve them. But that's still, of course, and now also 4 ministries joined that initiative. But if you look at there's still a limited budget. So the government can play a far larger role in terms of procurement and the money they spend, and they now spend it, most of the time with the usual suspects, with no positive impact on society or no environmental. So they can really, if we can shift that money more in the right direction of the right entrepreneurs, that already would have a big effect. And also what I see still is a struggle, of course, like the early stage of companies. So you see, and that's maybe in the Netherlands, but maybe also other, I see a lot of, it's in particular in the States, you only have an idea, and crazy idea to really build that better world and have a crazy idea, then it's still difficult in the Netherlands to also for impact entrepreneurs to raise funding.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of capital. If you're really successful, then of course everybody wants to invest in you, but if the risk is high and the reward is not so clear, then that's something. And I also see that sometimes with the government schemes, that they are, they're risk averse in a way, and that's really that's difficult. So because we then, we need those solutions, and sometimes they also can fail. Of course, that's no problem.
It's interesting. I mean, you bring up the risk aversion. I mean, which is of course, I mean, it's public financing, so it's sort of by nature tends to be more risk adverse, right? But it's also a huge resource and opportunity. Those public funds that, you know, even it can unlock so much more in private capital when you have government actors behind you. Are there certain you know, specific capital support schemes or programs, or you mentioned, you know, government as a paying customer for a lot of the impact startups and entrepreneurs in the ecosystem? Are there specifics that you can highlight that you think would help to unlock more of this capital that's needed?
Yeah. So I think you have like, even for example, there's like a tax scheme for innovation. It's called the WBSO. Now, if that's more, and it's now focused a lot on technology. If that would be more opened up for social innovation, let's call it that way, that would have a huge impact. And of course, in the energy field, we have all kinds of, if we could shift that to the more new energy instead of all the money that goes into the old energy sector still, and all the benefits there, that would also shift a lot of money. And you see, we also try to help entrepreneurs with access to EU funding. We have there a special program, because that's, you already see in the new plans of the European Commission, the Green Deal, you see already that shift. Although the only disadvantage of that schemes is still that the chances of getting the funding are not so high sometimes. So
it's a very complicated process.
Yeah, and that's why we try to help the entrepreneurs and with that, with consultancy services. But it's still, it would sometimes also be that they are not so difficult. That would be helpful, I think.
I think you know, you mentioned the green and the social shift that's happening at the EU level, and then there's obviously you all who are pushing this agenda at the very local level in The Hague, and then there's the Dutch government in the middle. And what is your take on their ability to? They can't possibly rewind the progress, right? So there must be some forward momentum forthcoming in some way, yes?
Yeah, there is, but still, you see, there are also, they're not only movements, they're also still traditional, and people that say they will do it in a new way, but still will move on in the same old economy way. I have to say that it's not that we can take it now for granted. So for example, there are developments. So there is also development where they now just opened up a consultation of a new maatschappelijke BV, so social enterprise entity, legal entity in the Netherlands. Yeah, that's really nice. But if there are no advantages attached to that, I think it's, I don't know. I'm not sure what it will add, for example, to the. And of course, I know that's directly difficult if you directly would open it up, and then. But I think the impact entrepreneurs deserve it to have that that advantages, and then I connect that. I would directly connect that to procurement, fiscal advantages. This is possible. It's also done for other groups of entrepreneurs. So why don't we directly open this up for these kind of entrepreneurs? It would really help. It would also help to make those entrepreneurs more visible for the government, but also for impact investors in the Netherlands. So I think the national government can actually play a far bigger role the coming 4 years, and I hope they also will now step in. And it's also for local ecosystem. This is really important. Yeah, I have to say that.
I think my last kind of question before I want to bring in Michael, but my last kind of question for you before we move on is. You all have done this work at ImpactCity of having to champion this cause and probably working within parts of government that have not, we're not necessarily understanding of the importance or the power of the impact economy in shaping and changing things for the better. And so you all have had to do your own PR, right? And convincing government officials of why this is important. And there must be some lessons there, right, for helping to drive that narrative at a national level among even traditionalists, as you said, or skeptics.
Yeah, there are, it is so for us. What for us has been a struggle. We always have a story which is a really international storyline. So we hope to have companies that scale their companies international. So not only in The Hague, not only in the Netherlands, but really have solutions for worldwide problems. And sometimes for us it was challenging, because what really sticks to also in to politicians here in The Hague is, of course, really local solutions. So and that's something we still have to do. We have to demonstrate that also because we will also have elections in 1 year.
Right.
So we have to change the narrative all the time. We see now we of course what we've done, we will now move more to energy transition and really the local challenges also in the city of The Hague. If we want to be energy neutral in 2040, which is the aim of the city of The Hague, then we have to do a lot, and we cannot do that without the impact entrepreneurs. I'm very sure, and there are also a lot of budgets, but then we have to shift those budgets again. Yeah, it's the same way as the national government to those entrepreneurs. So it's also a little bit practice what you preach here. So bring that also back to the local.
I was just going to say, I mean, all of this talk about pivoting, I'm sure any of the startups who are listening in, startup founders listening into this call can really identify with that. Michael, I'd like to turn over to you. I mean, I think Coos started with framing that you can probably really relate to and support around the need to be centering the impact economy around entrepreneurs. And so I would really like to actually ask you to, one, just to provide a quick introduction to yourself and to the Ministry of the New Economy for anybody on the call who is unfamiliar. And then to speak a little bit about your own experience as a serial entrepreneur and sort of what has led you here.
Thank you, Jessica, and also Coos for the reflections, very useful. And it's a privilege to sit in front of you and talk to you today. My name is Michel Scholte. I'm an entrepreneur and co-owner, co-founder of True Price, an impact institute, two social enterprises based in Amsterdam, but I would consider The Hague, or let's say I would consider Amsterdam a suburb of The Hague and vice versa. Let's not become parochial on the kind of post stamp of the Netherlands. I have been introduced in social entrepreneurship. I think it was like almost 12 years ago. I don't know, like I was volunteer at, I think it was the SOCAP conference in Amsterdam. I was volunteer with Kevin Jones and like all those people from Silicon Valley who championed it. I actually bumped into him and asked, I was so inspired. I wanted to become part of this movement of social entrepreneurs. It was like I just said, can I somehow be involved? He said, okay, you can become a volunteer. So I had to kind of do all sorts of, taking codes of people visiting the conference and those kind of things. But, I felt such a huge potential to bridge kind of the social good and the kind of the private, call it, the private. I have to say that I'm extremely disappointed, and then people sometimes call me a little bit confrontational, and I hate to be confrontational because I think I'm actually reasonable. I'm actually, just saying things in my view the way things are empirically. I think that social, and by the way, my enterprise, we employ almost, I think it's like 45 people. I lost count. We work across the world for the largest financial institutions, mainly like Itaú Bank, DBS Bank, ABN AMRO, but also a variety of listed companies, many Dutch utility companies, and many social enterprises as well. Also for many impact investors, from Wire Group to large family funds and everything in between. So, I find it very striking that we accept as a social enterprise / impact investing community the plain false competition that we face with our enterprises, with our investments. We face false competition in the sense that we try to pay for environmental and social costs. We try to address social, environmental, and whatever societal and natural benefits. And we do not get the actual returns for that insufficiently. And I know many of you have that on your radar, but we don't kind of sufficiently politicize this. We don't dare to point out on the level of the Dutch government, for example, where this unfairness is rooted. We don't dare. The Dutch are the most kind of confrontational and so-called honest people in the world. They dare to say at the first date that the mascara doesn't look nice, but the girl looks perfect. And that's very confrontational. We are super confrontational, but on this specific point, we somehow are kind of, I don't know what it is, but why am I considered kind of, some people call me activistic. I'm just telling the way it is. I was elected as Minister of the New Economy, and I felt this, and it was kind of a competition, and I think it was 16,000 people cast a vote, and there was kind of in a MVO Nederland network of 2,000 entrepreneurs, and I think there were 200 going for this role. So I felt actually myself in this privileged position to speak up. So therefore, I'm also a little bit more vocal, and especially now in the Dutch government. I feel like there are 4 issues that we need to address. First, we should stop think of entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurs as a separate, tiny, cute, exceptional thing. BVM in the Netherlands, seriously, guys, are we going for an exceptional category for those of the entrepreneurs? Serious entrepreneurs, huh?
You're talking about the now the proposed designation for a social enterprise, yeah, right?
Yeah, like the kind of category, you have NVs, BVs, and you have BVM. It's an exceptional category. Yep. Guys, we can do better. We shouldn't put administrative burdens to those with good intentions. We should make a social BV for those who kind of ruin the world. That was what Henk-Jan Beltman told me, the founder of Social Enterprise now. But also we need to address the accountancy system. Why don't we include in the counting of profit and loss and prices, social and environmental costs, right? That's outrageous. Why don't we stop subsidizing old economy, chemicals, agrochemicals? The Netherlands is totally addicted in a very intense, resource-intensive fossil fuels. The Hague, with Shell as headquarters, come on. Like, this is very outrageous that we give 20 billion per year of tax cuts and subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. I'm not against any entrepreneur, even if they go into that field, but why don't we use that money for the new economy? Why don't we use that money to stimulate social entrepreneurs, or at least create a level playing field? And that's something we don't sufficiently address. And we kind of accept the breadcrumbs of being exceptional category and kind of do cute small things. And I know I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit, but I want to make it clear that we need to politicize this and address this at the right political forums. And then it becomes actually not such a leftish idealistic thing. It becomes real growth agenda for also the let's say central parties or right-wing parties. Second, like the clear definition and methodologies, we need to make them Dutch standards, like an impact methodology. We work together with Harvard Business School, and Laure, I know you are kind of linked to this initiative on the impact-weighted accounts. If joint forces to work out what it actually means if you account for all the impacts next to just the financial impacts that is currently part of the accounting system, and then kind of make an adjusted valuation of the companies. I can assure you that a lot of these fossil fuel intensive old economic industries that get billions and billions of investments of subsidies, that they will become stranded assets, seriously. Because
we're already seeing that. We're already seeing that. Yeah.
Exactly, right. And but we still give them billions. Like between 2025 and 2030, the Dutch representative of employers want to reserve 10 billion to make them CO2 neutral. So we then have a CO2 neutral, toxic, let's say a chemical fertilizer company that is ruining natural capital, or that is kind of polluting the lungs of many people in The Hague. So, you know, we shouldn't be so kind of accepting all of that, since it's in the kind of in line with climate neutrality. Impact economy is broad, not just climate, it's broad, and we need to consider all these externalities and call that out. Third is
wait, Michael, I'm going to stop you for just a second, because I want to come back to this point that you mentioned about and keeping in mind we only have a couple of minutes, is you know, about you're talking about taking into account the externalities and how because impact startups do that, they actually pay a penalty for this, right? And how do you, what is like one solution for how to shift that, and particularly the investor mindset, to get them to understand that your profits and loss are not just a factor of money, right? It's the collective profits and loss.
Sure. I mean, obviously, when you make it transparent, you account for that, you measure your impact, and you bring that forward, you can kind of show we also create societal good. But at this moment, all the financial accounting systems and the valuation kind of protocols then give them indeed a penalty. You are less profitable because you simply have a higher cost base. You
are seeing this in some bank underwriting now, though, particularly in environmental. You know, for fossil fuels companies, they're embedding impact incentives into the financing structure of new loans, and also that a lot of banks are choosing now not to underwrite fossil fuels. But this doesn't get down to the startup level, right?
And also, yeah, but also we need to kind of exceed just the startup level. We need to look into every company as an impact company, because it is, you know, it's not just the ones with good intentions. Some people with good intentions have bad outcomes, bad impacts, and vice versa, right? And I think we need to really start jumping over our shadows, or like our boundaries of the impact professional, like these impact social enterprise worlds, and really consider any company as an impact company, because every company has negative and positive externalities, and we just need to kind of
we need a scorecard.
Yeah, whatever method. I mean, as I said, we try to make everything open source. It's on the level of profits, but also on the level of prices, the true price. You know, we try to make these things open source so everyone can work with them, and we bring them in practice. But as long as we are talking about politics here, as long as we don't address this at The Hague, it's all self-governance, voluntary. You know, we do our best, and we can get some kind of reward from the impact investors if you show your impact and make it quantitative and value it, but we will always stay marginal, and we will always face false competition. And you know, there's a final point, and I know I'm a little bit out of time, but the point of
well, there will be more time on the back, but go ahead, your final point. Continue.
The point of you know, well, let me make it 2 points, like 1 point, 2 points in one. We have this taxonomy discussion, right? That's very problematic. We shouldn't kind of we should always look at impact, not at kind of process and activities. And there's a lot of things that basically are a form of protection for old economy and at the expense of actually new economy. And we kind of are insufficiently looking at that, because we feel we get some crumbs small rewards. 25% of agriculture in Europe, and then some of that in the Netherlands becomes organic, and then we can work with our good intended food enterprises and etc. We feel fine, but 75% is not. Gas will very likely become part of the definition of what is considered sustainable in the European level. Let's elevate from those kind of political conventions, just have a clear view of what is impact and embrace that. And then if we do that, project and calculate what is the new impact economy, where work entrepreneurship, innovation and technology lead to actually zero external costs and a lot of societal benefits. That is such a massive investment opportunity. Like that indeed is most of them is startups. There is real growth, a huge growth agenda, and also an export agenda for the Netherlands. Let's put all our effort on that. And then many of the right wing or whatever political parties will jump on that bandwagon, because it will be a job kind of a job generator that we have never seen before.
Michel, thank you. Laura, I know that a number of his points really hit home, particularly on communicating the investability of this opportunity. I want to start. I've started the same way with the other two. You're with the Netherlands Advisory Board on Impact Investing, which maybe not everyone is familiar with. So would you give us just a quick introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. So the NAB, the Netherlands Advisory Board on Impact Investing, is a recent initiative. Well, not that recent, actually. We started 2 years ago. It's an initiative by impact fund managers and institutional investors who realized that even though the Netherlands can be quite a leader in the area of impact investing in the world, we needed much more, and there was a lot of fragmentation in the impact investing market, that actually social or environmental projects cannot find funding. There's a lot of mismatch still, and we realized that, as Michel was now underlying, there's a lot of regulatory change that needs to happen as well, and we've seen that happening in many other countries. So our initiative started from actually looking at that fact, and we decided to join a global network called the Global Steering Group on Impact Investing, led by Sir Ronald Cohen from Big Society Capital, and was also a chairman of the Task Force for Impact Investing for the G8 some years ago. And we decided to add the Netherlands as a 33rd country to that global network. And we were lucky to have the support of City of The Hague, who not only financed the feasibility study 2 years ago, but actually welcomed us also in The Hague as part of the ecosystem. So that's and we formally started a few months ago, but we already have actually quite a good base of members, and we're continuing. We're going to start actively on our agenda now, especially post-election.
Well, so you said start actively on your agenda now, post-election. I mean, from your vantage point, talk to me about what are some of the knowns and the unknowns of the new government, and what is needed, from the public, from the private sector, from the entrepreneurs to keep your impact agenda moving forward in spite of them?
Now, first of all, a lot is needed, so we're just starting. But I think that we are now at the turning point. The COVID crisis has highlighted, I think, for a lot of people in the world, not only governments but also corporates, and certainly in the public, that everything is interconnected. So we need to pay a lot more attention to environmental, societal, and social issues. So first of all, there's that awakening that has come. Second of all, one of the things that makes me very optimistic is that if you look at the political programs that were presented before the elections, they have never paid, I mean, the VVD has never been as left as it has been presented now. I think we've read that in many places. Sustainability was not lot of the programs of many different political parties at different levels, of course. Huh? I can hear Michael thinking right now, yeah, all right, they are present and they say something, but we're absolutely nowhere there. And I hear you out, and I think the same, but I think the fact that it is much more mentioned as a key central issue is also very encouraging. That the EU as well is busy with the Green Deal, with the taxonomy, has initiated the first reflections on a social deal that will follow up the Green Deal. I think already the fact that we're talking about impact and that we're requiring transparency, Michel was also mentioning the impact weighted accounting initiative, that is very important. Let the public know actually, who are the big polluters or who do not respect the rules. One of our board members, Willemijn Verloop van the Social Enterprise, she mentioned recently on another podcast, she said, ESG should be standard. You don't want to be tapped on the shoulder because you're behaving in a neat manner. It should be the norm. And I think that's what we're seeing as well on the investor side. The do no harm has become an absolute minimum standard. And now what we will be trying to do with the NAB is actually nudge investors, pull and push in different ways to go to the do good and actually use finance as a force for good. Any economy needs finance to grow, to function. So without investors, actually, there is no economy. You have an enormous power as an investor, and I think we need to make sure that we use that power for good.
What role, I mean, specific sort of, pragmatic steps can government actors take in helping push that along? I mean, not even just on the policymaking side, but by setting an example themselves through how they choose to spend their own money and what their priorities are.
Yeah, I think Coos mentioned procurement earlier. I think that's a very important one. I also think that we're all consumers, soon the new pension accord is going to take effect. We are all future pensioners. We think that there we should, as public, make our voice heard and make sure that we ask our pension funds, guys, you are looking at the whole way my pension is structured right now. How do you invest my money? I don't want my money to be financing weapons. I don't want my money to be financing polluting or socially inappropriate corporations. So I don't want to, I would go personally even further as a consumer. I don't want my food to be filled with preservatives or sugar and to basically poison whatever it is that we're eating. So we have a lot of power as members of society, and I think we need to make sure that we speak together. So we act at retail level, general public, but also we as the NAB, we want to basically be a voice for the different type of stakeholders of the sector, and then make some concrete propositions to the government or governments, because I think the cities also have a role to play, and share our knowledge, make propositions for new ideas how to deal with impact. And the BVM was mentioned earlier. Maybe it is not indeed the ideal, and maybe you should have a BVA, the asocial BV, but I think it's very important to offer a transition as well. So we also have to make sure that whatever proposition we put forward is going to gain some traction and be implemented. So we think that some of our colleagues from other platforms have already started working on demanding a tax exemption for impact investing, like you have, for donations. Maybe if you have the status BVM, you could get some kind of more favorable legal context as an investor. So that would be an incentive. We're working also at European level with other national advisory boards in other countries. We work on the capital requirements and bit technical, but long story short, institutional investors have to have a certain coverage ratio with their own capital of their portfolios. And we think that impact investing should have lower capital requirements also because we think that they bring a lower risk in the longer run. So, these are a couple of examples. Don't want to monopolize also.
No, those are great because I think, one of the things I think Michel did quite well is he put it out there for us, right, in terms of what the real costs of continuing to do business the way we have traditionally done things are, and I think you and Coos also took it down to a very granular level on things that we can be practical, sort of tangible steps that we can be doing. Michel also with methodologies and the like. And so now I'm going to open it up to some questions that have come in the chat. I'm also just going to pause for about 5 seconds in case somebody feels very passionate about just asking a question. If you do so, please just make sure you direct it to a particular panelist if you don't mind. So. Feel free to unmute yourselves if you have something you would like to say. Yeah. Okay, so one question that came in from Lisa Jordan, DRK Foundation, who I'm sure most of us on here know, and was just about the whether any of the measures and ideas that came to light, have any political weight after the elections. And Coos, perhaps maybe you will share your thoughts on that first, if you don't mind, and then Laure.
Yeah. You see, of course, in terms of you see in several political parties in the programs that was for the BVM and also attaching maybe some advantages. There are parties where they were advocating for that, and also in terms of course, what you can also as a government where you want to invest in, there are also parties. But I have to say it's not so extreme as Michel was mentioning it. So it's still quite. And what you also saw that's really interesting now with the current situation in the parliament, where they opened up all the documents, you see that some of them were really advocating in the programs, but they're willing to negotiate also on those impact favorable terms. So I mentioned, for example, to be clear about it, GroenLinks, really that they were on agriculture stuff. They were not so extreme on their points. They were already mentioning that. So this is politics, of course. So it is important. I think that, I have to agree with Michel that even they could brought it up even more focal in the programs, but certainly there is more than ever in many programs of political parties. There's interest in the impact economy. Given the current situation, that makes sense. But to me, it's still not enough. I have to say that you should expect it way more even.
Okay, great. So then, just picking up in some of the other ones in the channel, Michel, I'm going to flip it to you. I know there were a couple of points actually that you didn't get a chance to finish, and so I wondered if you would mind picking up from.
Jessica, can I ask a follow-up question? Do you mind?
No, absolutely. Go ahead,
And
Lisa.
it is to Michael or Michiel. So there's the carrot and stick approach, and the BVM I would put into the category of the carrot. And the stick, of course, is to remove all of the current subsidies for the non-impact economy, which, as you noted, is about 20 billion or something like this. The question is, where do we see that kind of leverage happening with this new cabinet? Do we see anybody, any party program that actually carries that kind of call with it? So we see it right now, for example, in the Biden administration, they're going to move subsidies from oil and gas to solar and other clean forms of energy, or at least that's the conversation that's going on, which is a step forward from where we have been over the last 4 years. So I'm just asking you, do you see anything in the current discussion, the current political discussion, that would make you feel optimistic that we might see some of these externalities internalized in the real economy or in the normal economy?
Thank you, Lisa, and also Jessica. Like, let me first say that, you know, physics is not, there's no steps to physics, right? It's not like you take a stairs and take small steps, you just fall when it comes to physics, right? There's no negotiation with physics, as I think it was Greta Thunberg who said that, you know, we are overstepping our planetary boundaries, you know. I don't think we can actually, you know, I would say if you go for like these extremely small carrots, like what you're saying, Lisa, it's a carrot compared to a Christmas meal. Like, why would we go for a carrot? Give it to your bunny, but don't go for a carrot in comparison with a huge opportunity in a way, right? There's so much more that we can gain, but also their urgency is so extreme. That's why I'm like, sometimes I feel like desperate, because just look into what scientists are saying, and especially also in this community, like, do we realize what it means if we have an IPBES report on nature, if we have, you know, One Planet reports or WWF, the IPCC reports, the implications of that? That's the kind of state of the art of our knowledge. We cannot accept anything less. And I know there's probably not much on the political spectrum, except for very like relatively Party for the Animals, Green Left. D66 is like 50 shades of gray with some green stuff. But again, like, with all respect, but many of the industry greening agendas, it's carbon, it's just carbon, but there's so much more. We cannot have a climate neutral cigarette, you know. That's like, okay, we have absorbed carbon, if that actually works. If you do your math, you see that all these absorption kind of carbon negative projects, if every company does it, hell no that it will be possible that all these companies exist in 30 years from now. So don't be fooled by things that are called green that may have the intention, and we spend billions to get it carbon neutral. We should jump ahead. And you may think, well, be realistic. You know, I think I'm the most realistic when it comes to these kind of things, because I just look at the empirical facts and I make the calculations and see that indeed on the political landscape, it's relatively poor. I do think there is an opportunity for us, and that is to make clear what the growth agenda is for a truly sustainable economy, including all the environmental and social costs, and look into what is the jobs there. I said once more, since it's even on many countries in the world who have ambitious climate agendas, even there, you know, there's a lack of entrepreneurialism for truly green, nature inclusive, climate friendly, people friendly, nature friendly, animal friendly solutions, right? This is all a gap. There's a huge gap for investment, for jobs, for innovations. If we can kind of quantify the jobs that we can generate, the export agenda that it represents, you know, I think then totally we can get all the parties on our side. You know, I think it's our job to you know, outperform the kind of McKinsey's and the Shell scenario analysts who kind of show, you know, there are 400,000 jobs in the industry in the Netherlands. There are 800,000 jobs in the new economy, and that is an entrepreneurial economy. We need a lot of impact investment for that. And if you take an impact lens and look into the total impacts that are created, that's a much more interesting agenda. And I'm sure if we bring that forward, we get all of those political parties on our sides, because it's just jobs and it's entrepreneurship.
Lisa, I just want to give you an opportunity to follow that up if you had any comments that you wanted to make.
So I think I understand the sense of urgency and I share the sense of urgency, but I'm very, I find it a little disconcerting that we are post-election and we don't see that kind of urgency reflected in party platforms. And nor is there, I mean, there's a national conversation about all sorts of things right now. Like, are we actually going to have a government being one of them? But not about this, not about internalizing externalities. You don't see that kind of national conversation yet in the Netherlands. And that's why the topic today is around what can we expect post-election. So I am happier than Michiel is about the BMV. I think that's a necessary, or the BVM, sorry, I think that's a necessary step, but it isn't, of course, entirely insufficient, but it's good that it's happening. But this bigger question about, are we shifting the subsidies? Are we shifting procurement, for example? There's many tools in the government basket that could be used in order to create a fair, clean and green economy that are not yet in the public discourse, in the public domain in a way that they might be. And it would be encouraging for investors. The government can be a catalyst in that kind of sense. And it would be encouraging for investors to see that kind of conversation happening in the public domain because it would de-risk the sector in some kind of ways. And I think that's important.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there was another question that actually came up, which sort of deals with this carrot and stick approach, actually. And I'm not quite sure what the public sector version of this would be, or how this could be embraced by the public sector in some form. But Michelsholt, I hope that I pronounced your name correctly, but mentioned this recent sort of phenomenon of activist hedge funds, which we have been watching quite a bit in the United States, where they're taking active positions in a way. Usually it was for short-term value creation, and now it's around long-term sustainable value creation. We're seeing this happen particularly with ExxonMobil in the United States, and so Laura, I just wanted to turn that over to you to get some comment about that phenomenon happening, and I don't know if you have any initial thoughts on what sort of the public learnings or version of that could be, but please share your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think I'm a little, I always feel a dilemma actually with regards to the topic of urgency. I am absolutely convinced that we have to move very quickly. We only have 9 years to achieve the SDGs, and it doesn't look good the way we are. We live on credit, basically, as a society, generally speaking. So we need to go much faster. But if you see recently, that question that indeed Marius was asking about CEOs, I have to think about Emmanuel Faber, the CEO from Danone, who's just been fired because he takes a long-term view. But there was an article, I think it's today or yesterday, in the FD as well, underlying that, also the former CEO of DSM, the former CEO Paul Polman of Unilever, they were all these leaders who started to initiate a movement between among a corporate, and then had to pay the price for it. So it's very difficult to be walking off the beaten path. And one of the things we want to do with the NEB is actually convince, so it's a bit of a push and pull. We're convinced that, first of all, you need to convince investors of the fantastic opportunity that they have with impact investing. Yeah? Indeed, 800,000 jobs to be created. There's a lot of economic activity that is going to be generated, and obviously a lot of opportunities. But this requires also short-term investment, which means that quarterly results might not be what they are expected to be. So I think there you need to have, the other side of the mirror, which is maybe governments or regulators defining fiduciary duty in a different way. That it is not only the short term or just the financial profit, but it's the it's actually the buying power of a person and the well-being of a person in the longer term. So so there's a lot of transitions that need to happen. And on the one hand, there's the urgency. On the other hand, I'm French, and in French we have a saying: you don't catch flies with vinegar, which means that if you want institutional investors to move to impact investing, and actually quite a lot of them already have some funds available for impact investing and complain that they cannot find the projects to invest in. We need to show them the positive, the opportunity in impact investing, and so pull them in impact with opportunity and push them as well with more regulation and actually the fact that indeed the ones that are polluting and creating damage have to pay for that societal costs. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, I couldn't agree more actually on the push and pull, because I don't think I completely agree with Michel that there is this incredible urgency. I mean, and also with what you said, Laure, we have 9 years on the SDGs, but systems are hard to change, and people have been doing things this way for a very long time. And Coos, I would actually like to give you the final word, just for your last thoughts and takeaways on just any where do we leave this this conversation, and a constructive note about there is a lot of uncertainty right now in the political situation, and so what gives you kind of room or cause for looking forward positively?
I think so that there's always hope in terms of that there will be opportunities, and you see there is still momentum. Of course, it's not, you see it not in all the parties, but there will be, but we have to take the momentum, I think. So there will be moments in time, and then it's really important that we that we become more vocal, and that's policymakers, that's the impact entrepreneurs themselves. They are really influential also in politicians always like to speak to entrepreneurs. So that's really important to keep in mind. Also, some parties in the Netherlands, they claim to be for the entrepreneurs. So, and also the investors, they can also bring a really important perspective. But if there is momentum, so for example, the BVM, I agree with Michel, at the moment, maybe it's not the right, but it brings momentum. It brings the debate in politics. And then we have to be vocal, and that opportunities there will, and that's why also, for example, it's important now that we have a national advisory board in impact investing, where those different types of impact investors come together and can be more vocal about this. That's really important, and then I'm positive that we will have time on our side. But it's sometimes it's also important, like Michel mentioned, to quantify stuff, to really present it, to also tell about the opportunity. And it's not only the economic opportunity. I also see the social, and that's also for cities really important, the inclusive part, to make the economy more inclusive. It's also, I see also the divide between in society. This really can be a solution to many of the big problems we face, and the problems will be there. So we will have new opportunities to bring those solutions we have as a sector, as an impact sector, to the table, and we should do that more often and more vocal. I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, everyone, this has been a lively discussion, and we are out of time. It's my understanding that there will be a recording of this, and so stay tuned, and thank you all for joining and taking an hour of your day, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.